right, everybody, thank you all for coming. I'm James Carter. I'm going to call our meeting to order. First thing we're going to do is say the Pledge of Allegiance. The flag is out that way. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. Has everybody had a chance to review the regular meeting minutes from May 22nd, 2018?
Motion to approve the regular meeting minutes from May 22nd, 2018.
Do we have a second on that?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. The meeting minutes are approved. Next, the executive session meeting minutes from May 22nd, 2018. Has everybody had a chance to review those minutes?
Motion to approve the executive session meeting from May 22nd, 2018.
All right. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. I'm going to pass on the chairman's report. I don't have anything new to say that isn't going to be said later on. Brian Ray is out of town in Paris. Hi, Brian. So we're not going to have a financial report tonight. Which brings us to the town center and the presentation of the master concept for discussion. So with that, I'll turn this over to Andrew in Seven Oaks. How you doing tonight?
All right. General tax support first. You gave us all 3 minutes.
I'm messing around. It's hot here. That's the fan.
There is another fan. I'll get it. She always let me know.
All right. Well, before we get started, I want to acknowledge everybody in the audience. I appreciate y'all coming out. We have really enjoyed the last 7 months working with Cdda, and y'all have been great to work with. And tonight we are presenting you as required by our development management agreement. We have 20 copies, right, Andrew? That's right. And 5, whatever they're called, those little things that, I'm showing my age. But more importantly, just addressing the content of the master plan. I think it's important to know, the last couple of meetings we've kind of gone back through the process, and some of y'all who haven't been here may not be aware of the steps that we took. Now we have with us tonight Bob Hughes, Senior Principal at Hughes Goodwill Area Line, who's been the architect of this master plan. I think we have Park Simple here tonight. I don't think they're here. But we want to thank Bob and his team for doing such a great job. We also wanted to note in the plan, the way that we've set this up, the printed version is so that when you open it up, we basically put a note page on the opposite side of every one of these. And it's important for you to realize a plan is a plan. It is not a final document. This is a final presentation of this plan, but you are going to have questions and comments either tonight or in the future about different things, and it just gives you a place immediately to write on and kind of keep your notes together so that the next time we visit or if you give us a call that you can get back in touch with us about it. And now just to kind of review how we got to where we are now. When we were first engaged at the end of last year, we engaged Hughes Goodwill Area Line to come along with us because of their familiarity with the city and because of Bob Hughes' really eminent history here, having grown up here, gone to high school here, and has a lot of funny stories about the city of Chamblee. But Bob, not only that, is that he's really the premier land planner that I know in the southeast United States. If you look at a list and a resume of his firm's projects all over the city here and all over the region, usually there's an H4 name next to those presentations. so it's a great choice by the DDA, and we've had a great collaboration. So once we engaged Bob, the DDA, we had them also engage 4 different consultants. One was a company called Park Simple to help figure out the issues of parking, because the city right now does not, you would think it has excess parking, but as it develops, parking will become an issue just as it has in a lot of other municipalities. We also engaged several other firms. We had
Health consultant, market study, coupled with CBRE to look at the demand today and sort of track the demand as, over the next 5 years as the downtown develops.
Yeah, no consulting. Basically, when you try to figure out what the future is going to bring you, you bring somebody along who can kind of help you along the way. And Noel, it helped us look at a 5-year development plan, what could happen, but they looked at it from the standpoint of demand drivers that help get you there. And they looked at each of the major real estate uses, which we in the industry call food groups: retail, multifamily, condominium, wholesale condominium, hotel, where we actually used a different firm, CBRE Hotel Group, and then office, and then did some projections based on current demand, but also looking at the surrounding area. So we brought all those together. And then about 3 months ago, we had accused Bob's firm go back and come up with 3 alternative plans. During this whole time, we did a lot of public meetings, had a lot of public input and process into those times. And so, and even had a design session where the DDA and the City Council had a chance to actually take proposed densities and figure out how we might put them together. So the final plan, if you want to pull that up. We'll put it up on the screen and then I can talk through it here. The final plan is really based around what we call the Broad Street corridor. Slide up here. And the reason we picked Broad Street is there's really twofold reasons. One is that the existing city buildings that are on this area, plus the Kaufman tract, which they purchased, the DDA purchased some time ago, and the other, the Indiana Antique Building, all, it's the largest concentration of city and DDA-owned property in the area. It also has some very interesting and unique, I'll call them unique to Chamblee type retail and smaller scale buildings that front up along the wall. And so the final plan reflects looking, growing out from this corridor and then expanding out into these other areas. We have the projected uses. If you follow the Noel study, they projected that within this area that we would need somewhere close to 100,000 square feet of office, 60,000 feet of retail, about 650 units of multifamily, around 50 condominium units. This is over a 5-year period, and then 120-room hotel. And so what we did then is take these blue parcels that are currently owned by the DDA or the city, and we dropped some of those uses on them, not as final lines on drawing, but to show how that density might fit. And then the second thing we did is that we looked at the other programs that the city already has, the initiatives that they have underway. The rail trail, you all are probably familiar with the rail trail system, and as well as the Peachtree Road improvements that are starting down by, all the way down by the Whole Foods project, and then coming up and projecting it to come along here. I'm sorry, that's Chamblee Runway, coming up this way to this area. So the downtown district will, when the rail trail comes up to this point, Bob Hughes' firm suggested that we break it apart to a high line and a low line, and then follow these two places and then come back up to Peachtree. If you look at this plan also, it shows landscaping and street improvements along this particular corridor. And as many of y'all know, in the plan itself, we show a 90-foot wide proposed landscape area, and a portion of that being right-of-way along Broad Street. And then we show a 70-foot wide, which allows parking on both sides around the rest of the property, or around these other streets that are, as they're widening and expanding. Now this, at the end of the day, this is a plan, and it's very important. It's the city, one of the city councilmen was very concerned that we were going to propose something that would make us look the equivalent of 1970s Dunwoody. And for those of you who are familiar, who have lived in this town a long time, you know that Dunwoody went to a very specific, in a very specific direction to build downtown Dunwoody to look like colonial buildings for no cost. And that's not the objective. The objective is to capture and to encourage the same type of unique development that's already occurring around the city of Chamblee, both in retail and some of the great residential projects that are being done, to capture all of those and then to create an environment that will make those thrive and possible. So in other words, allow the market to work. So how does that get accomplished? And that's where we come to the recommendations. And what we have on page 39 in your book, and Andrew, if you'll pull that up, we're jumping through about 40 pages of material that we presented. We've recommended to the Cdda and to the city that they take some very specific actions over the next year and then over the next several years going out 5. And the first is to create a special zoning district, sub-district within the area of Village Commercial for the downtown town center area under the Village Commercial zoning area. And that would include, we're proposing, this is totally dependent upon what the city decides to do, is the area in orange here. And within that district, then the city would help direct uses and sidewalk and other streetscape improvements so that we help create and encourage a vibrant downtown mixed-use community. The second thing that we had was that Broad Street, since it's where we want to begin the project, is that the city would move forward with the engineering and the discussions with the property owners, all of whom we've met with, about how we can begin that development along Broad. Then the other recommendation that Bob's firm and we made to the city was that we looked at a relocation of the city police department area here, the jail and the court system, to another location in Chamblee, but not right in the center of your downtown. How many of y'all have been up to Cumming recently? Yeah. What's the biggest building in downtown Cumming?
Jail.
It's their new jail. And you know, when you're trying to attract people to your downtown, that's probably not what you want to lead with. That's true. So, you know, what we want to see happen in the downtown area are things that activate, that pull off each other. And so the city is beginning to explore the option of moving that facility to another location. Okay. The last thing here was to look at the parking requirements for the city over the long haul. Now what you see, I think when you look at this plan, you notice that there's a large park. And that park sits on property that the city does not own or control today. The other pieces here, we are either in discussions with the owners or have already met with them. We've met with the owners of this property. But the notion is that we would create an area with 2 gateways coming off of Peachtree Boulevard. coming, one up Broad Street and one up American Way. And then you have your other two gateways here at either end on Peachtree Street, either coming from the north or coming up from the south. And then at these different corners here, we put in roundabouts that kind of create focal points for the city. We begin with this one, and then later move on and do this one. And the topography of the city drops off from here down to here, only about 8 to 10 feet if you take this hill off, which you can see when you go up and you look at that. And so one of the plans, or the plans that we're considering would be to build a new city hall, ultimately a new city hall on this property that would overlook an amphitheater onto this park. And in the interim time period, it would take this existing parking lot facility and reactivate a large part of it to more of a hardscape landscape area that could be used for public events and festivals and things like that. Broad Street from here, from Peachtree Road to the new traffic circle, would also be curbless, so that it would make it easier to facilitate a pedestrian environment if you have, again, festivals and events like that. And last week I got images in our proposal at the back end of it that show what that can look like is from the city of Chicago and their Fulton Market District, which is in the West Loop. This was Bob's idea, and we saw it in action there, and the place was absolutely hopping on a Thursday afternoon. The other thing, the important part of this project is that we looked at parking, because parking, if you've all been to Savannah, I think the mayor and John, are you with us tonight? Oh no,
well, John Mason's there.
Yeah, okay. Well, anyway,
John's around here.
yeah, down in Savannah, one of the hard lessons that comes from going down there is that if you look, the tallest buildings in the city are parking lots that they built during the 1960s and 70s. And yet there's other ways to accomplish those same objectives of dealing with automobiles without putting decks front and center. And if you go to either Columbus, Georgia, or you go to Charleston, South Carolina, they have a substantial amount of public parking, but it's all tucked in and behind buildings so that you don't see it. And it's carefully arranged. And so we've suggested here that over time, that some public parking would be provided on the Kaufman site, some here on this track that we would propose eventually be combined together behind Vintage Pizza, and then somewhere along American Industrial Way. So, we've looked at the parking, we've looked at the extension of the rail trail, which it really creates a front door to a lot of properties. It's like beachfront. We've also looked at creating a wide area here that will provide what we call beachfront real estate as developers, or private developers to come in and develop these sites. And then finally, from an arts perspective, and what I would call kind of civic institution perspective, is that we've begun to take a look at where both public art and then the integration of the hardscape landscape area across this whole area would create walkable paths that encourage people, when you park on the outside, you park your car, and then you can walk around all these areas of interest within. We don't show any buildings on this side, one, because the city doesn't own it, but also because there's already been great private development that's taken place in that area. The Walking Machine Works project that Robert Pond has done is an example of that. And so, as this area continues to redevelop, we think that the private market forces are going to encourage both the continuation of some of these great uses, but also in some cases you may see a change in use over time. And with each of these industrial buildings, no one is suggesting that they, Kyle Jenks here with Parkside has done a marvelous job on a number of projects really all over the city where he has taken and done adaptive reuse on buildings like this that give them just a great office, creative office space, and with very little change except for making it more attractive to today's workforce. So we're not suggesting that every one of these things has to change to become a high-density multifamily development or condo project, but we think that the market will begin to set the tone for these spaces, and this new zoning classification will give the city the ability to specifically deal with and guide those any development in that corridor. So we've made a lot of other suggestions. I mean, there's some very specific things about improvements that I don't want to go into. I don't think we need to, David. You guys need time to digest this. We have suggested that two entities be advanced. I think that already there's kind of de facto groups meeting around the Arts Council, and then also a History Council. We've met with people about that, but I think it's very important for the city to keep those two institutional bodies in mind as they continue to do their planning. So, the task forward, we have done some preliminary, we've contacted several consultants who we've worked with on to assist the DDA on the zoning classification, if you all choose to go forward with that. And we would be bringing engagement letters to them for you and council review here within the next week. We also have asked Bob's firm people were asking, well, how do we decide on the streetscape? Well, Bob, they haven't designed the actual physical streetscape and those elements yet. We have ideas for that, but it can be done and done fairly quickly, but it needs the input of the right folks because we want it to be unique to Chamblee, and they're going to deliver a letter for us to continue that process as well. So, Andrew, unless I missed something,
I think that's good time to open up the question.
I would say there's one idea that came out in the bridge across Peachtree Boulevard.
Yeah, pull that up. You can find anything on the internet these days. You can actually buy old iron bridges on the internet. One of the, when I first came to Atlanta, my wife grew up in Peachtree Heights down near Buckhead, and when people were going to Marietta before 75 was finished, they just said, you went up 41 to Creek Chicken and turn left, right? And David Logie, who runs Knoll Consulting, told us that one of the biggest challenges for Chamblee, and those of us who have been involved here know where everything is, but if you're not from here, you need I won't call it a big chicken, but you need and he said you need a way to direct people that they know where they go, and then they can head up to the downtown, because Peachtree Road, even though it was the first wagon road, towards the northeast side of the city, it's no longer the main thoroughfare. So one of the ideas that Bob's firm came up with was, how about if we considered putting a bridge-type structure that would actually serve as a pedestrian bridge across, because the topography works that way, across Peachtree Boulevard. It would also become a symbol and a sign for people on Peachtree Boulevard, which gets 70,000 cars a day, where you turn to come to this new downtown. And the other idea was to take the very functional but unattractive Chamblee Dunwoody overpass bridge and basically take one of these old bridge structures and kind of drop it on top of it. And, you know, kind of announce, when you think about Chamblee with its industrial heritage, to give something that becomes kind of, you know, unique for the city.
The bridge on the left over Peachtree Boulevard is really coming down American Industrial Way. And so you didn't quite realize this, but if you know where the liquor store is on the other side, if you go up in the parking lot and sit there and sort of look, you're looking straight up to the bend where that traffic circle would be. It's not that far away. But if it came across there and landed sort of midway between Chamblee, Dunwoody, and Peachtree Boulevard, it would be really easy to then take it up and connect it to the high school. If you're thinking about a community sense and the vibrancy that students could even bring, to be able to make that connection between the school in a safe way that became this iconic element across and right into the potential future park, it seemed like a really fun and cool thing to do.
So,
Thank you
Dave,
very much.
you know, any questions or comments, or you glad to answer?
I don't think I have any questions. You guys have done a great job of keeping us apprised throughout the 6-month period. Thank you for getting us done on time and on schedule. I mean, that's monumental. That is tremendous. Does anybody have any questions?
Thank you for, I went a little longer because we had a lot of new people in the audience today, so.
That's fine. So what we're going to move on tonight is to accept their presentation. This isn't approving anything they put in the plan, because there's nothing in the plan that is carved in stone that we have to do or don't have to do in the future. But I would like to accept their plans and recommend those plans to City Council at the next work session, which I think is 12th. At 12th, so we can start working on zoning part of it, keeping them going. Yes.
So there's a page in here that I think the city manager gave you on space that the city would need, different offices and whatnot. And then there's a page in here about how to implement the change with the civic center and not necessarily tear it down until after the new city hall is built. But I don't see anywhere in here where it gives any dimensions or location or what to do with creating a new civic center. So I wasn't sure if the city manager included that in any data to you, or if this is just like, all right, we're going to eventually build some other civic center.
Well, I think the actual program for the need for the new civic center is one that we haven't fully, it hasn't been fully developed.
Okay.
And you know, at one point when we were talking to one of these corporate prospects where they had a large facility, we were thinking that we might plug it into that. But now that may be delayed, it might be a reuse of this space and a possible expansion. So,
And I'll say that much of what the Civic Center is used for today is embedded into that.
Yeah, it looks like all the
Yeah.
main uses are defined in other areas other than just civic use. Like, hey, who wants to have a meeting there?
Yeah.
I didn't see any space specifically
no, that's
designed.
a good catch. I mean, that's something that needs to be further developed.
Yeah, right, between the city-owned properties here, which we see as the city hall, of the sort of there's outlined here, and the existing building, and potentially expanding it, that's sort of a partnership between the civic center and city hall.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have a motion to accept the plan and recommend the city council?
Motion to accept the documents created by 7 Oaks and delivered to the city council.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, that motion carries. Thank you guys for coming in, I really appreciate it. Our next item on the agenda, old business, we have the integrated fire protection for table and chairs, sprinkler deficiencies. Catherine, is this under you?
So basically all this is last year when we did an inspection, there were a couple deficiencies that were found. The same company that did the inspections also can help fix those before we have our next inspection this year. And then it was just never signed. So this is really, I wanted to bring it before the board so you could look at it. If an action's needed, I would just say giving approval to staff to be able to sign the contract with the company to get those deficiencies updated.
I remember when Adam brought the deficiencies up to us, but I don't remember, was there like a cost to this, or was that,
There
has
is.
that been determined yet?
Yeah, so it's the $1,255.
How much?
$1,265
That's it?
to your packet.
Let me see, yes, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry, maybe it's not.
So do you need to approve that expenditure in order to keep the building code?
So we didn't approve this back last July? I thought when he brought it up, we said, let's get it fixed. We
Not-
didn't do that?
No, I think it was what you guys approved was to have the inspection done. That's all I could find in the file, so not the actual work to get it updated.
Yeah, let's go ahead and get that done before the building.
Motion to move forward with the scope of work described in the project amendment in our packet.
Do you have a second? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you. That motion carries. We'll fix the fire protection sprinkler system. Next, on to new business. It says I'm supposed to welcome the new executive director, but Catherine asked me not to. Oh, I'm sorry.
Just go over it, it's fine.
Catherine Lee is our new executive director. Thank you so much for all the help you've done in the last couple of months. Next on the agenda is the bond refinancing. We have the folks from Davenport here.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Doug Gebhardt. I'm with the Davenport Company. We're a financial advisor to the city of Chamblee. Here tonight with my partners, Courtney Rogers and Ricardo Cornejo. We thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. At the end of 2017, we were hired by the city of Chamblee to serve as their financial advisor. And our initial task with them was to form a comprehensive financial review, which we presented to them at their March retreat session. As part of that retreat, we looked into the opportunities, strengths, challenges facing the city, and also looked at the outstanding debt portfolio for potential refinancing opportunities. And as part of that review, we saw that the Downtown Development Authority Series 2016 bond, which was the initial $12 million, plus the $1.4 million Series 2017 bonds, were potential candidates to refinance for debt service savings. So that's the overview. Flipping to page 2 of the presentation is a brief summary of the existing debt. So under the 16 and 17 bonds, the city of Chamblee is the underlying obligor. What I mean by that is ultimately that the city is pledging its taxing power to help support the DDA bonds. The bonds are under a interest-only period up until December 1 of 2019, which there is a fixed rate. At the end of the 2019, it would then go into a variable rate period till 2029, and that's when the bonds would start amortizing. Due to the variable rate nature and the interest rate environment we're in, we're thinking that perhaps locking in rates and taking in a long-term financing might be an appropriate approach at this time. So with the interest rate environment that we're in, the Fed is expected to raise rates at least one more time this year, and perhaps a second time. And then in 2019, they're looking at potential 3 interest rate raises. So all in total, between 4 and 5 market movements, and when they move that, it's about 25 basis points each time. So we're looking at an additional 1.25% on the loan. And so The way that the current bond is structured, it is based upon prime rate, which sort of mirrors what the Fed does. And if you flip to page 4, you can see where the prime rate was and how that ties to the federal funds rate. If you were to look at when the bond was taken under, the prime rate was at 375, and it would reset at plus 25 basis points above that, so it would be at 4%. However, with the actions the Fed has taken over the course of the last year and a half or so, the new interest rate, if it were to be set today, would be at 5.25%. We believe that in today's market, all things considered equal, we'd probably be between a 4.25 and 4.5 on a fixed rate basis. So we think there is some opportunity for savings on the debt service side. We are going to potentially explore some alternative structures to perhaps extend the interest-only period to buy some more time for our empire the bond, or to perhaps a longer amortization period, which would reduce the cash flow impact. Still working through that, but we do think, regardless, that there is opportunities to save. So, our observations and recommendations on page 5 is that on December 1 of 19, actually the bank has the opportunity not to extend that loan, and we want to reduce that risk from the city. While there is an extreme likelihood that not happen, that is a potential risk that the $13.4 million would become due in immediate payable, which would be an extreme liability. And if the term is extended for the next 10 years, it is subject to the variable rates, and then perhaps, as I mentioned, another 1.25 basis point rise, with based upon 5.25 is today, it could get as high as 6.5%. So we think that there is some opportunity there. So the reason and rationale for this refinancing ultimately is to, one, avoid the balloon payment due in 2019. Secondly, is to lock in a fixed rate that is lower than what the current bond would be having. And then also, we would continue to have the ability to be repaid in whole or part at any time without penalty. So as part of the RFP process, we're going to be putting out a bid, and we understand that the DDA ultimately wants to sell pieces of this property, and that will be used to pay off part of the bond. And so that undertaking this refinancing would not jeopardize the DDA's ability to do that based upon our current market indications. So what we're looking to do on page 6 is a direct bank loan. And what that is Davenport as financial advisor to the city and the DDA, working with Dan and city staff, put together a request for proposals that we would distribute to national, regional, and local banking institutions that would outline the key terms and conditions of the loan. It's important to note that by setting out the RFP, it does not obligate us to move forward. So if it's not come back to what we want to do, there's no cost to doing that. We would then get bids back and then evaluate them and ultimately recommendation. And again, with the bank loan structure, we would preserve the right to repay the bond over time. Last and finally, on page 7 is our timetable and next steps. With your permission tonight, we would like to have the ability to release the RFP tomorrow to the banking institutions, and then give them about 2.5 weeks or so, get bids back on July the 12th, and we would come back to you guys on your regularly scheduled July 24th meeting to adopt the bond resolution. Following the adoption of the resolution, we go through the validation process and hopefully close sometime in around mid-August. So tonight, I think what we're looking for, Dan, correct me if I'm wrong, is just a verbal authorization or recognition to authorize Davenport on behalf of the city and the DDA to release an RFP to refinance the bond and put something out on the street to get proposals.
That's exactly right. Absolutely.
And with that, I'm happy to answer any
think this is exactly what we need to do. I'm glad y'all have brought this to us. I'm curious, when you put all this together, did you all reach out to our banking partner that we currently have with FEMA?
Correct. I did speak with Mike Kirshner over there. He's aware that we are looking at potentially refinancing the bond. He is expecting the RFP. We understand that it needs to be competitive, obviously, and plans to submit proposals and understand what we're looking for. We will reach out to other local banks as well to make sure that they're on our distribution list. So any and all participants are welcome.
Great, great.
Yeah, let's have a motion to authorize them to seek proposals.
Motion to have Davenport put out an RFP.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Pleasure to see you guys. Thank you. Next on the agenda is the Georgia Power easement for SLX. Dan, you want to walk us through this?
What was this?
I know.
Well, you know,
Keeps coming up.
one of those things, you
Yeah.
own this property, we didn't know all the transactions. This is a power line easement, and will probably have one like this to affect your residents. I read this one, it's actually better than one that sign on the other. I mean, they put that power line easement anywhere on that. This is a little bit more reasonable, but anyway, the developer has asked us to do this. It requires the developer to make a certification to us pursuant to the lease code and get things to the project and have that certification. You all may remember our phone which also restricts us in various ways. This particular transaction is permitted by the deadline is permitted by the lease. So from the perspective of the BDA, there is no reason, no legal reason we should go ahead and do this.
Okay. I need a motion to authorize me to execute the easement.
Motion to authorize the chairman to enact the easement with SLS, for SLS.
Second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, that motion carries. Next is the Peachtree Station loan. Dan, will you walk us through this?
It's similar to what we just acted on. What we have is a financing by Peachtree Crossing, which is the lessee and beneficial owner of Peachtree Station, the signal. And again, because we hold, we title certain rights under the lease, consent and joiner into the leasehold mortgage. And of course, the leasehold, the tenant doesn't have to be time. So they are pledging that, and we are being asked to consent to that and to sign